Hello po. Good afternoon again. So for for those who just came in, let me introduce myself again. I'm Tats. I'm an intern at the SALT Institute. So welcome to day 3 of ADL LX 2021. So for our second session in the room, we have Ma'am Socorro Escares. She teaches counseling courses at the Ateneo Graduate School, and she'll be telling us about how to understand Gen Y and Z students. So I'll share screen for her in the meantime. Ma'am, you can start na po.
All right, thank you, Tats, and good afternoon, everyone. It's rainy afternoon from where I'm broadcasting from Antipolo City. So the term broadcasting already dates me as a Gen Xer, and I think a lot of us here are also Gen Xers. So while we wait for the presentation to begin, okay, I just want to introduce my context, no, with regard to the topic that I'll be sharing about. So, my topic is meeting students where they are, understanding Gen Y and Z students. And basically, my context for sharing about this topic is my personal experiences as a graduate school lecturer at our formerly education department, which is now the Gokongwei Brothers School of Education and Learning Design. Basically, I handle students who are majoring in guidance and counseling. And before I started teaching part time in the graduate school, I was a teacher, an English teacher, a guidance counselor, an administrator in our basic education for 27 years before I opted for early retirement. I think you have to, okay, you have to press the percent button on the file.
I hope it's okay po na direct sa YouTube yung video.
Maybe I can try presenting. Okay lang ba? Can I
Sige
share
po.
screen muna? All right. Okay. Okay, so the first part of my presentation is just a 4-minute video of Singaporean made video about Gen Z, or what we call the Zoomers who were born between the years 1995 and 2010. And then, of course, I'll be talking about my millennial students who were born earlier from 1980 to 1994. Okay, let me know if you can't hear the audio.
Miss Pinky, we can't hear the audio po.
I'm sorry.
We can't hear the audio of the video.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Can be heard po from some, but it's pretty soft po.
All right. Maybe I can increase the volume.
lifetime will not send a single letter by mail. But we would spend at least 20% of our time on social media. Having too many gadgets also has a bad impact. We rather stay indoors and use our gadgets than play outdoors and be active. We have terrible social skills. We are 10 times more likely to smile to a handphone than a person. Our attention span is as short as a goldfish.
Okay, can you begin
You have 10
again?
seconds before you lose us. If I go to university, I would be looking at a heavy study load. When I graduate, I'll be competing in a tight job market against 7 million for talent. A plumber is more likely to get a job. I would choose to live with my parents until I'm 45. Even if I have to share the same bed with my brother. Housing is going to be too expensive. I will meet my future wife in a dating website. With plastic surgery and makeup, all girls will look like some Korean actress. We are told we are special. And we believe it. I want to be an MP when I grow up. I'll work from home at my dining table next to my kitchen. I will deliver my speech with a green screen behind me. I'll wear a shirt, a tie, and a pair of shorts. I don't need to control the media. All I need is a Facebook and YouTube account. Yes, we can. Just like
Okay. Sorry about that. I hope that somehow you were able to listen in. Um, Tats, was it all right?
Yes po ma'am, I'll send na lang to, people in the meeting the link.
The link to the YouTube video. Thank you. Okay, so going back to my context, I spent 27 years in our basic education as a teacher, as a counselor, doing admin and basically formation work. And this is my 7th year in graduate school, teaching guidance and counseling courses. And I think a lot of my sharing this afternoon is generally informed by my experience of being a mother to 4 Zoomers, age 16 to 24, all studying online, and 3 of them are in the Ateneo. But before I begin, I just like to make these disclaimers about my presentation. Okay, so first of all, this is not meant to stereotype our Gen X and millennial students, Gen Y and Gen Z students, and it is based primarily on my personal observation of them and my relationship and interaction with these graduate students and thesis and IP advisees. And much of it has been validated by published research on generational characteristics. And basically, this is a sharing of the kind of perspective I was able to gain as a Gen X teacher slash parent, primarily for retooling purposes after not having been in the classroom for a very long time, and also in trying to understand the context of my own children during their online schooling experience. So I'd like to share with you some observations of my graduate students with regard to their shared top concerns. So, of course, the primary concern would be finding a job after finishing their master's degree. In fact, a number of them have lost their jobs, no? Because some of them are teaching in private schools. And as we know, last year, around 750 private schools had to close because of the effects of the pandemic. And related to that, both millennials and Zoomers have cost of education, particularly the cost of an Ateneo education, as a top concern as well. And not all of them have jobs. The younger graduate students who are Zoomers, a number of them still rely on their parents for their graduate school tuition. So personal finances are a concern. But at the same time, they're also looking forward to being able to live independently of their parents. And I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that I think the millennials and the Zoomers are the most politically correct generations that we have encountered as teachers and formators. Now, in terms of differences, if millennials tend to be more idealistic, our Zoomers are on the pragmatic side. So my older students in graduate school tend to see education, particularly their post-grad, as not just an extension of their college life, no, whether it's in Ateneo or in other colleges. They tend to see education as an interesting experience, okay, that they want to prolong. In fact, that is the generation where we got the YOLO and FOMO from. You only live once and fear of missing out. On the other hand, the younger generation of graduate students are very practical. So they see their continuing education in graduate school as more of an investment. And if millennials tend to demand transparency about how you go about your course requirements and how you grade them, Zoomers tend to look to their authority figures and professors as they want to find out if you're authentic, no? If you live an authentic life. And millennials also value stability and having growth opportunities, not just in the workplace, but also in their studies. In fact, even before they finish their MA, they're already looking towards pursuing their PhD. On the other hand, Zoomers are more concerned about demanding innovation in their digital experiences, particularly in the past year. Comparatively, our millennials are more socially adept than our Zoomers. Um, Even as we can see that our Zoomers are more digitally connected, but they tend to be less trusting in relationships. And at their age, a lot of them are still strongly influenced by their parents in terms of decision making and their choices in life. Okay, so what are the particular issues that I encountered teaching in graduate school with regard to my millennial students, the older ones? Because I advise a good number of them for their thesis writing and for their capstone projects. I noticed that well, of course, no, most of my students naman have been wonderful despite the online setting, no, because of the pandemic. But a good number of them have had some difficulty maintaining focus, especially with regard to finishing the the program and requirements, no, for their master's degrees. And it's been difficult trying to shepherd them into finishing their graduate degrees on time. And thankfully, because of the situation that we are in, our school has become more considerate of requests for extension so that they can finish their degrees. And I noticed that in terms of academic work, they tend to prefer a lot of hands-on work, working in groups, rather than dealing with a lot of readings, no, particularly in my content subjects, and listening to lectures and watching a lot of videos, no, on Canvas. Um, they say that the millennials are our overscheduled generation as children. And so they tend to bring this slight anxiety about achieving work-life balance because a lot of them have had jobs now for a longer time than the Zoomers, and so most likely they are in positions with higher responsibilities by now. And I think the demands of graduate work, no, especially for those who are about to complete their degrees, no, have um, have been quite a challenge, no, getting balance with all the demands of their professional life. So, in terms of intervention as an advisor and a teacher, um, because I generally handle small classes. Although it was easy fostering closer relationships, particularly with overstaying students, for lack of a better term. I think the challenge here is for them not to be emotionally dependent on you, okay, as an advisor or as a teacher, but to see you also as a school authority that expects a certain bar of performance from them so that they can be motivated to get to the finish line. And so, because of my experience as a counselor, I also tend to do a bit of counseling. And mostly for the older students that I have, the millennials, my approach is more of a tough love kind of counseling. And since a lot of them are doing their internships already, I try to provide them real life work opportunities and send them in pairs or in groups of three to institutions within the basic ed so that it's easier for me to monitor how they are doing and to coordinate with the internship coordinator. Some of them have successfully been accepted as employees in the BEU because of the internship experiences that they've had, no, in the units. Or sometimes, if it's not possible for them to do their internships in our BEU units, we use their job context for counseling training, particularly for those who are not situated in school settings, but more on the corporate side. And another thing that I have tried to impart is teaching them how to set priorities. And I usually do self-disclosure and tell them about my personal experiences of um, having difficulty finishing my own master's degree. So I think when you do self-disclosure and they see you a little bit more human than you than they actually think you are. I think they're encouraged rather than um, instead of becoming more complacent about their deadlines. As far as Zoomers are concerned, no, these are really the young ones. So I get students as young as 21. So these are fresh graduates from college. And a number of them are in their early or mid 20s. I found it extremely challenging, particularly last year when we had to do online teaching because these Zoomers are technologically way ahead of me as a Gen X teacher. And so, and of course, it's it takes a while before you are able to adjust to the speed with which they are able to manipulate technology, in the classroom. So they can be quite impatient with certain protocols that you have in class. But what I do is I try to enlist someone, usually the BDL, who is the most technologically adept, to help me with presenting online material in a more efficient manner. I also noticed that they prefer to work alone, primarily for efficiency's sake. And that's what they say. Like when they email me personally and say, Miss, can you not assign us to a pair or to a group because I'm more efficient working alone. And this is validated by research about our Generation Z as being more individualistic when it comes to certain performance tasks and even in certain life values that they hold dear. And I have found it quite a challenge to help them become more discerning as to social media content. Although a lot of our students are very intelligent, no, they apply critical thinking skills. But when it comes to like research or citing work for their review related literature or for turning in a research paper in my classes, I have found that we appear to have some like a bone of contention when it comes to the gray areas of plagiarism, because at this point they have no other recourse but to do their research online, and there's a lot of information on the net, no, so it's practically all there. So that is something that I have grappled with last year. And compared to millennials who I suppose are I think, more emotionally mature at their age. A lot of the Zoomers in my graduate classes have actually revealed to us their difficulties with their mental health issues. And I think it's also because generationally, there's not much stigma now attached to coming out and saying that I have this mental health issue. And among themselves, it's something that they encourage, no, for their cohorts to let one another know if they need help, no, in this area. So what have been my interventions as far as the Zoomer generation is concerned, no, in my classes? So technologically, I had to retool, no, and try to understand how gamifying some school activities work. Although in the beginning, I had some boo-boos, and thankfully, my students have been very patient with me. And in terms of explaining certain processes and protocols, because they can be impatient with some of them, it's important for this generation to understand the rationale or the reason why you do the things that you do in class and why you think this is an important content of their class. Okay. Um, I have had to still assign them to groups to work with one another, because it's very important that they start practicing teamwork for later on when they do actual counseling work as licensed professionals, because you do a lot of clinicking with your fellow counselors. It's not so much as forcing them, but really giving them opportunities to discuss, like during breakout groups, and also during offline activities, no, they get assigned group discussion work during their free time. But ultimately, the output that I require is still individual because that is their usual preference. Um, when it comes to the gray areas of having, uh, possible plagiarism in their work, we have had long discussions about what I would consider a plagiarized um, a plagiarized piece, no, or what would probably count as plagiarism. So I always tell them that sometimes it's some sort of a gut feel. So if they are unsure that what they are citing, that what they are including in their written work is common knowledge, then it is always better and safer to cite their sources and be sorry. And in every guidance and counseling class that we teach, we always begin with a module on ethics. Not just on research ethics, but also on professional ethics in the future conduct of their work as licensed guidance counselors. Again, there's still a bit of counseling that I do because my classes are small. So personally, it's been a lot easier for me given my background, my counseling experience, and also the fact that I handle um, small classes only. But in the end, if there is a need for me to clarify the boundaries, no? And if I feel that their mental health issues would warrant referral to the proper offices, no, and formators in the university, then I do refer them to the LSOGC or to helping professionals that I personally know within the campus and in my professional network. Okay, with regard to concerns with plagiarism, this is a tip I'd like to share with you that I got from one of my readings from Duquesne University Schools of Business. In their papers and exams, they have taken to including an undertaking, some sort of code of honor that students need to virtually sign, no, when they submit their online papers. Or like, for example, in my final exam for psychological measurements and evaluation, in red ink, you can see there the undertaking. In accordance with the Loyola Schools Code of Academic Integrity of 2018, I attest that I neither received nor offered unauthorized assistance in answering the questions on this exam, and that I have not engaged in any acts of plagiarism in completing my answers. And then they type in their name and provide their e-signature. Of course, it's not a guarantee that they're not going to do exactly what they undertook not to do, no. But I always believe that at their age, no, and their level of maturity, and because they are training to be professional guidance counselors, where standards of integrity are supposed to be very high. Um, Kumbaga, tiwala na lang that they're going to do what they're expected to do, no? Especially in submission of papers and exams. Okay, so what are my personal takeaways, no, as a teacher, a counselor, and also as a mother to Zoomers in particular? When I started online teaching last school year, and also when I started getting students who were my very young students in basic ed before, no, and I noticed that they do reinvent themselves when they reach graduate school. No? They change a lot, no. As a person, I have tried to I have learned to suspend my judgment based on what I know previously about them, and especially in their issues and advocacies, I have tried to unlearn my own biases and tried to learn their language. It's not easy coming from a different generation, but it's something that I think helped me a lot, no, in surviving the past school year online. And as a counselor, I think the opportunities presented to me by online schooling also helped me retool informally in multicultural and multi-contextual counseling, particularly in understanding my students first as individuals, like the Zoomers, and also as groups, no, like the distinct differences that they have as millennials and as Zoomers. And although they belong to different generations, in every cohort, we make it a point that a lot of our synchronous classes will be devoted to, a big part of it will be devoted to kamustahan, so that they can focus on um, the content, a lot more content in the asynchronous classes after we do away with the need to rant or maybe unload, no. And it always helps that we just listen to one another, even in small groups or in plenary, because we're such a small class anyway. And in the end, as a cohort, they tend to be closer. And if someone is getting left behind, no, in doing his or her internship or completing his comprehensive exams, then the rest of the cohort become their cheerleaders. And of course, as a teacher, I realized that I really have nowhere to go but to digitize and try to have fun in the process of learning to be more digital. And as a parent, seeing my four kids doing online schooling, during at the time of pandemic-induced quarantine, I have learned to cut them some slack, and also myself, so that we will all be less stressed, no? Since we spend 24/7 with one another, as I believe all of you are doing in your own homes. Okay, so that's it for my sharing. It's really just a short sharing of my experiences in the past year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Pinky. So unfortunately, wala na tayong time for Q&A.
Sorry.
It's okay po. If you want po, you can leave your email in case
Yes,
some participants want to ask you questions. You can leave your email po in the chat box.
yes, I'm typing it right now. Thank you very
Okay. Again,
much
thank
for
you so much, Ma'am
listening.
Pinky, for the insightful presentation, and to everyone who listened in and participated. So we'll be starting our next session in 8 minutes. So feel free to move on to your next room po, to your next sessions. Or if your next session is here in room 7, you can also stay. Thank you again very much.